So imagine for a moment that your brain isn't actually generating your thoughts.
Right.
Like, instead, imagine it's functioning as this incredibly complex biological receiver.
Yes, a receiver.
And every sudden gut feeling you have, or every stroke of intuition, and even, honestly, the literal physical health of your cells is dictated by what that receiver is downloading from a cosmic cloud of memory.
It completely upends the traditional biological, entirely.
Totally.
We are so accustomed to thinking of the mind as this locked box,
Yeah.
like an isolated computer just sitting on top of the spine.
Right. The idea that we are these hermetically sealed islands of consciousness. But the stack of sources we are jumping into for today's deep dive suggests that is a complete illusion.
A massive illusion.
Yeah, and we are looking at a convergence of information for you today that, frankly, sounds like pure science fiction until you realize the caliber of the actual data behind it.
The data is what grounds all of this.
Exactly. We are connecting a recently declassified CIA document on the nature of reality, an impossible, reality-breaking quantum physics experiment conducted in a shielded lab at MIT in 2024, the 3,000-year-old ancient texts of Hinduism, and the highly controversial medical philosophy of Dr. Kadiyali Srivatsa.
It is a phenomenal cross-section of human inquiry.
It really is.
You have bleeding-edge quantum mechanics confirming ancient Eastern philosophy, and then you have modern medical theory attempting to apply those exact principles to cellular disease.
And the mission for this deep dive is to basically synthesize all of this for you. We are going to explore the mechanics of how information and consciousness are actually stored in the fabric of the universe itself.
Yes.
We're going to look at the hard biological data showing how your daily emotions act as physical antennas, broadcasting and receiving data from this field.
Which is fascinating.
And ultimately, we are going to examine how conquering your deepest fears can literally alter your biological reality.
The stakes are quite literally life and death here. But I think it is crucial to ground this right away for everyone listening. We aren't dealing in abstract mysticism today.
No, not at all.
We were looking at peer-reviewed physics, specifically the findings from that MIT laboratory, which suggest that consciousness is a fundamental field of the universe, operating basically in the same way that gravity or electromagnetism does.
So if the human body is essentially an advanced biological search engine, it isn't querying a localized server in your skull.
Right.
It is constantly querying the universe itself. And to understand how we are accessing this universal memory bank, we first have to prove that the memory bank actually exists.
Which is the hardest part.
Exactly. Which takes us beneath the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
March 14th, 2024. The laboratory of Dr. Anaya Desmukh.
Yes.
And to truly grasp the magnitude of what happened here, we really need to look at the methodology. Because this wasn't a standard laboratory setup.
Not by a long shot.
They were operating in an environment shielded from almost all external interference. They used these dilution refrigerators to bring the temperature of their quantum processors down to a few millikelvin.
Which is, what, like fractions of a degree above absolute zero?
Exactly, almost as cold as physics allows. And they utilized heavy metal shielding to block out the Earth's magnetic field, stray radio waves, and even cosmic radiation.
So they basically created a perfectly silent room, quantumly speaking.
Precisely. Because quantum states are incredibly fragile. If a single stray photon hits a qubit, the superposition collapses entirely.
Right.
It's called decoherence. So Dr. Desmukh's team spent 18 months just ensuring the system was perfectly isolated. And their goal was not the quantum teleportation of a single, simple particle state, which, has been done for decades.
Yeah, let's clarify that for the listener really quick, because when people hear teleportation, the mind immediately jumps to a sci-fi transporter pad.
Beaming physical matter across a room.
Exactly. Beam me up.
A fair distinction to make. Quantum teleportation does not move physical matter at all. It moves information.
Right.
It relies on quantum entanglement, when two particles are linked in such a way that the state of one instantly dictates the state of the other, regardless of the physical distance between them.
Even if they're light years apart.
Exactly. Historically, physicists have used this to teleport simple binary states, just a 0 or a 1. But what made the 2024 MIT experiment revolutionary is that they were attempting to teleport a memory node.
A memory node being a highly structured, multi-layered packet of information.
Yes.
So if previous experiments were teleporting like a single letter of the alphabet, This team was trying to teleport a complete grammatically correct sentence using multiple entangled qubits over a distance of 12 meters.
That requires an orchestration of quantum states that is staggeringly complex.
Yeah.
You have to encode the relational data between the qubits, not just their individual states.
Oh.
So they initiated the test. The state of the particle cluster at point A transferred perfectly to the particle cluster at point B, 12 meters away. The primary teleportation was an absolute success.
But the success of the teleportation isn't actually why we are talking about this today.
No, it's not.
It's what happened immediately after the transfer was complete. Because the researchers were monitoring the quantum field for decoherence, just checking to see how the system settled back down.
Standard protocol.
Right. And instead of the monitors showing a flat line of quantum silence, a third signal appeared.
Resonance X, as they officially dubbed it in the paper.
Resonance X.
An anomaly that, according to the standard model of physics, simply should not exist.
It was a signal without a source.
Exactly. The data had successfully moved from point A to point B, but resonance X was an echo appearing in the quantum vacuum itself.
Which makes no sense.
To use a crude analogy, imagine you send a highly encrypted text message to a friend's phone. The message arrives perfectly, but simultaneously, an exact, slightly phase-shifted copy of that message appears on a server that doesn't physically exist.
Wow.
It has no hardware, no IP address, no location in space-time. It is just there.
Naturally, I mean, the first assumption of any rigorous scientist is going to be that the equipment is malfunctioning. You mentioned how fragile these systems are. A microscopic fluctuation in temperature could cause a glitch, right?
That was the immediate hypothesis. They thought it was thermal noise, an error in the phase amplitude mapping, maybe a flaw in the shielding.
Sure.
But when they analyzed the architecture of resonance X, it wasn't random static. It wasn't noise.
Yeah.
It was highly structured. It possessed repeating sequences that perfectly mirrored the original quantum data they had sent, but it was distorted. It behaved as if the data had been reflected off something outside of our standard physical dimensions.
So they decided to stress test the ghost in the machine, essentially.
Yes.
They set up verification protocols to see if this anomaly could process complex logic.
They encoded a pristine mathematical pattern into the quantum state of Fibonacci sequence.
Okay, why a Fibonacci sequence?
Because if resonance X was just an artifact of thermal noise or a hardware glitch, it wouldn't be able to reproduce a progressing mathematical sequence.
Oh, because noise destroys patterns.
Exactly. Noise destroys patterns. It doesn't replicate them. So they ran the teleportation protocol again. The data moved from point A to point B, and right on cue, the anomaly appeared in the vacuum.
And when they looked at the structure of the echo,
The Fibonacci sequence was there, but it wasn't just a degraded copy. It was perfectly inverted.
that is wild.
The phase response was deliberately mirrored.
It's like standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, shouting a complex math equation into the void, and the echo that comes back to you isn't just your voice getting quieter, it's your voice reciting the equation perfectly backwards.
That fundamentally violates our understanding of how information behaves in an isolated system. But they pushed it even further.
They did.
In June of 2024, they scaled the system to 12 qubits. They structured the entanglement to resemble a rudimentary neural network.
So not a conscious AI, but...
Right, not an AI, but a highly organized web of relational data. They ran the teleportation, and this time, they embedded a probe signal into the architecture.
a message.
A simple binary message, which translates roughly to, "Are you there?"
They are actively interrogating the quantum vacuum. I mean, that is bold.
And the response they received from Resonance X was not a reflection. It was not a mirrored echo.
What was it?
It was a structured, deliberate phase response. The vacuum answered back.
Man, if we step back and look at the sheer scale of what this implies, the sources draw a direct line between this MIT data and the theoretical work of the physicist John Archibald Wheeler.
Yes, Wheeler.
He coined the phrase "it from bit."
Wheeler was a visionary. The it from bit doctrine proposes that the physical universe, every quark, every electron, every force of gravity, is not fundamentally made of matter. It is fundamentally made of information. Reality is a manifestation of data processing.
So the quantum field isn't an empty theatrical stage where particles just happen to bump into each other. The stage itself is a storage medium.
That is the precise implication of the MIT experiment. When you generate a structured thought, a complex emotion, or a sequence of information, and you introduce it into the quantum field, it doesn't just evaporate when the physical action is over.
It stays there.
The information is archived. It is stored in a non-local domain, a cosmic hard drive that is woven into the very fabric of existence.
Which means that on a physical quantum level, information is never truly lost.
Never.
Every sentence you've ever spoken, every intense survival situation humanity has ever endured, the collective knowledge of billions of lives, it is all permanently etched into this cloud-like memory bank.
It forces us to redefine what memory actually is. I mean,
Yeah.
we assume memory is purely localized neurochemistry.
Just synapses firing in the hippocampus.
Exactly. But if Wheeler is right, and if Dr. Desmook's data holds up, your biological brain might simply be a local terminal accessing a much larger universal mainframe.
Okay, but I have to push back on the logistics of this for a second.
Go ahead.
Let's say the universe is this infinite, indestructible hard drive holding the conscious experiences of every human being who has ever lived.
Go.
That is an incomprehensible amount of data. If my brain is a terminal connected to that mainframe, why isn't my conscious experience absolute chaos?
That's the logical next question.
Right. Like, why aren't you and I sitting here completely overwhelmed by the memories of a 14th century blacksmith or the survival panic of a soldier in the Roman Empire?
That's the crucial question.
Yeah.
If the database is universally accessible, why aren't we drowning in the bandwidth?
Exactly.
And the answer provided by the sources is twofold. First, we have to understand the underlying architecture of how we are connected to this field. And second, we have to look at the highly specific biological hardware that filters the signal.
And to understand that architecture, we actually have to leave the modern physics lab.
We do.
Because while MIT used dilution refrigerators and qubits to discover this in 2024, a group of ancient scholars essentially wrote the comprehensive user manual for this exact phenomenon over 3,000 years ago.
The parallels are nothing short of astounding. We are looking at the Vedas,
Right, the ancient Hindu texts.
the foundational texts of Hindu philosophy, composed between 1500 and 500 BCE. These were individuals operating without the benefit of the scientific method as we know it today.
No particle accelerators for them.
Exactly. No advanced mathematics, no technology. They relied purely on rigorous, sustained introspection, the deep observation of consciousness itself.
And what they concluded aligns so perfectly with modern quantum mechanics that it almost feels like they were reading the same textbooks.
It really does.
For you listening, imagine if the deepest truths of the universe weren't discovered by looking outward through a microscope, but by looking inward with such intense focus that you actually perceive the code running the simulation.
One of the central tenets of the Vedic texts, specifically within the Upanishads, is the assertion that the observer and the observed are one. Reality is consciousness observing itself.
Which is not a poetic metaphor. That is literally the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics.
It is functionally identical. I mean, for the last 300 years, the dominant paradigm in Western science was strict materialism.
Right.
The assumption was that matter is the fundamental reality. The universe is a giant mechanical clock. And somehow, if you arrange enough carbon and water molecules in a complex enough way inside a skull, it miraculously produces the illusion of a conscious mind.
That matter creates consciousness.
Yes. But quantum mechanics completely inverted that hierarchy.
Because at the subatomic level, the mechanical clock falls apart.
It shatters. When physicists look at an electron, they find that it doesn't exist in a definite physical state or a specific location until it's observed.
Right, until a measurement is made.
Yes, until then, the particle exists only as a wave of probability, a superposition.
It's everywhere and nowhere simultaneously.
And what forces that probability wave to collapse into a physical, measurable particle?
The observer.
The act of observation, the interaction with a conscious observer. The Copenhagen interpretation suggests that without consciousness, there is no physical form.
Wow.
Consciousness is the fundamental ground state of reality, and matter is just the byproduct.
And 3 millennia before quantum physicists debated this in Europe, the Vedic seers stated, Brahman is consciousness. The universe is Brahman observing itself in infinite forms.
Brahman being the infinite unified field of awareness that permeates all things. Now, this naturally leads to one of the most misunderstood concepts in Eastern philosophy when viewed through a Western lens.
You mean Maya?
The concept of Maya, yes.
Let's look at the mechanics of that, because I think the popular culture interpretation does it a massive disservice.
Yeah, it really does.
People hear the word Maya, and they translate it as illusion, which they then interpret to mean, oh, the world is fake. Like reality is just a hologram in the matrix, and none of this actually exists.
That is a severe misinterpretation. The physical world is entirely real in its consequences. If you hit your hand with a hammer, the pain is real. The tissue damage is real.
Yeah, you definitely feel that.
Maya does not mean that the objects around you do not exist. It means that the way your senses perceive those objects is fundamentally deceptive. Specifically, Maya is the illusion of separation.
The illusion that things are distinct and disconnected from one another.
The Bhagavad Gita articulates this beautifully. It says, "The senses perceive the many, the wise perceive the one."
I love that.
Your biological hardware, your eyes, your skin, they evolved to help you survive on the plains of Africa. They tell you that you are sitting in a chair, which is separate from the floor, which is separate from the air in the room, which is separate from me sitting across from you.
Right.
But quantum physics tells us that this perceived empty space is a lie.
Right. At the Planck scale, there is no void.
There's only a single, continuous, vibrating field of energy. The separation is just a biological rendering trick.
The analogy that really helps me visualize this, and I think it perfectly captures the essence of Maya, is to think of the individual human ego as a single drop of water. But this specific drop of water has somehow developed a profound case of amnesia. It goes about its entire life fiercely defending its borders, terrified of evaporating, completely forgetting that it is, in reality, the entire Pacific Ocean.
That is a fantastic conceptual model. You are not a solitary drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean expressing itself temporarily as a drop.
Yeah.
And we see this mirrored in the contemporary theoretical physics you brought up earlier, the work of Dr. Maria Strom.
Yes, her recent paper on consciousness as a fundamental field is absolutely wild.
She proposes a mathematical framework where consciousness is not an emergent property of neurobiology, but a ubiquitous field, much like the electromagnetic field or the Higgs field.
So it's everywhere.
Everywhere. In quantum field theory, what we call a physical particle like a photon is just a localized excitation, a ripple in the underlying electromagnetic field. Dr. Strom argues that what we call an individual mind, your distinct personality, your memories, is simply a localized excitation in the universal field of consciousness.
So if we tie this back to the Vedas, they called this primordial continuous field of vibration OM.
Yes.
It's the fundamental acoustic medium of reality. And modern string theory, which posits that the most microscopic ingredients of the universe are not solid dots but one-dimensional vibrating strings of energy, is essentially physics catching up to the concept of OM.
Exactly. Everything at its core is a frequency.
So if we establish that we are all just distinct ripples in the exact same ocean, we arrive at a profound conclusion regarding the MIT experiment.
We do.
If the universe is a hard drive storing the survival data of every ripple, and if separation is an illusion, then on a fundamental level, we must be completely entangled with that database.
We have to be.
Which brings me right back to my frustration.
The bandwidth problem.
Yes. If I am the ocean, and the database is wide open, why can't I access it on demand? If I am facing a massive crisis, say I have a terrible illness, or I'm facing financial ruin, why can't I just sit quietly, focus my brain, and intentionally Google the universal hard drive for the solution? I've tried. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work because you are trying to use the wrong interface.
What do you mean?
You are trying to use logical linguistic thought to access a system that does not operate on logic or language. The cosmic cloud doesn't process English.
Right.
It processes frequencies.
Yeah.
The sources reveal that the password to access this stored memory bank is not a thought at all. It is an emotion.
And this is where the deep dive transitions from the abstract realms of quantum physics and ancient philosophy directly into the wet electrical biology of the human body.
Yes.
Because emotions are not just abstract poetry.
We have to completely reframe how we view emotions. And to do that, the source material points us toward decades of rigorous biometric research conducted by the HeartMath Institute.
Yep.
They have been studying the precise electromagnetic properties of the human body.
Now, normally when we think of human electricity, we think of the brain. We picture the cerebral cortex lighting up with electrical storms of synapses firing.
The brain is certainly an electrical generator, but it pales in comparison to the heart.
Really?
The HeartMath Institute discovered and verified with magnetometers that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field that is roughly 5,000 times stronger than the field generated by the brain.
Wait, 5,000? That isn't a subtle difference. That is an overwhelming biological dominance.
It is the strongest rhythmic electrical field produced by the body. It extends out several feet in every direction, passing right through your skin and into the space around you.
Wow.
And what determines the shape, the amplitude, and the frequency of that massive magnetic broadcast? Your emotional state.
So when I feel a sudden wave of terror or deep overwhelming gratitude or intense grief, I am not just having a private internal experience trapped inside my own skull.
No. You are physically altering the magnetic environment of the room you were standing in. Emotions are chemical, magnetic, and electrical impulses.
They're tangible things.
They are literal broadcast signals interacting with the quantum field.
And this mechanism, the idea that our biological broadcasts actually interface with reality wasn't just studied by alternative medical institutes.
Far from it.
The intelligence community was deeply invested in this. We have the declassified CIA Gateway Process document from 1983.
The Gateway Report is a fascinating piece of literature because it is a highly classified military intelligence agency attempting to weaponize consciousness.
Right, they weren't trying to find inner peace.
Exactly. They were not interested in spiritual enlightenment. They wanted to know if the human mind could alter physical matter, access remote information, and transcend the boundaries of space-time.
And their conclusion was essentially, yes, it can.
The report describes the physical universe as a universal hologram. It details how the human mind, when synchronized through specific hemispheric brainwave frequencies, can interact with this hologram.
It's unbelievable.
The key takeaway from the CIA's analysis is that human consciousness alters the physical projection of reality based on its vibrational frequency. The emotion you hold dictates the frequency you broadcast, which in turn interacts with the quantum field to collapse probability waves into your physical experience.
But if I am constantly broadcasting this massive magnetic signal and simultaneously receiving data from the cosmic cloud, there has to be a biological bouncer at the door.
There is.
There has to be a filter. Because if my conscious mind suddenly received the raw data of 1 billion survival experiences, my nervous system would fry.
You would suffer a complete psychotic break. The bandwidth is just too massive. But evolution provided us with a profoundly efficient filter.
The RAS.
Yes, it is a network of neurons located at the base of your brainstem called the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
Let's look at the mechanics of the RAS, because the numbers here are staggering.
At any given moment, your sensory organs, your eyes, ears, skin, are gathering roughly 11 million bits of information per second from your environment.
11 million.
Every shift in light, every subtle temperature change, the sound of the air conditioning, the texture of the fabric on your skin, 11 million bits.
Okay.
But your conscious processing capacity, the part of you that is actively listening to my voice right now, can only handle about 50 bits per second.
11 million down to 50. That means my brain is actively disregarding 99.9999% of reality before I even have the chance to perceive it.
I wouldn't say disregarding. It is aggressively curating.
Curating, okay.
The data exists, but your conscious awareness is shielded from it. The RAS acts as the gatekeeper. And how does it decide which 50 bits of reality to let through into your conscious mind? It looks for instructions. And the instructions you give it are written by your dominant emotional state.
So if I am walking around in a dominant state of fear, anxiety, and scarcity,
Your RAS accepts that as the target parameter. It will meticulously filter those 11 million bits of incoming data, blocking out opportunities, blocking out solutions, blocking out subtle intuitions of safety, and it will only let through the 50 bits of data that confirm your reality is terrifying and dangerous. You literally render yourself blind to the healing signals because your emotional broadcast told the biological bouncer to keep them out.
and the sources introduce something called the echo theory here, which I think is vital to understand because there is a built-in time delay to this biological programming.
Yes. The physical reality you are experiencing today, the state of your health, the shape of your circumstances, is not a reflection of the thoughts you are having today.
Right.
Physical matter is dense. It takes time for the quantum field and your cellular biology to reorganize around a new broadcast signal. The reality you see today is a delayed echo of the emotional state you held consistently 60 to 90 days ago.
That is a massive paradigm shift for anyone listening who has tried to change their life just by thinking positive.
It completely changes the timeline.
If you wake up today and say a few positive affirmations in the mirror for 10 minutes, but for the previous 3 months, your body has been bathed in the cortisol and adrenaline of absolute panic about your health, the universe isn't going to instantly hand you a miraculous solution.
No, it can't.
You are basically trying to whisper a new command into a system that is still blasting the heavy metal alarm bells you set off 2 months ago.
The momentum of the previous frequency has to play out. To change the physical output, you have to change the source signal and hold it. And the HeartMath Institute gives us the exact metric for this optimal signal.
Coherence.
They call it coherence. It is achieved when your heart's electromagnetic field oscillates at exactly zero point 0.1 hertz.
Explain the biology of zero point 0.1 hertz. What is actually happening in the chest cavity?
When you are experiencing fear, anger, or chronic stress, your autonomic nervous system is jagged. Your sympathetic and parasympathetic branches are fighting each other.
Like driving with one foot on the gas and one on the brake.
Exactly. If you graph the heart rhythm, it looks chaotic, erratic, like the readout of an earthquake. Your magnetic broadcast is pure static.
Right.
But when a subject moves into a sustained state of deep appreciation, unconditional love, or profound peace, usually accompanied by slow, rhythmic breathing at about 10-second cycles, the heart rhythm synchronizes.
It smooths out.
The graph smooths out into a perfect repeating sine wave. That is zero point 0.1 hertz.
And what happens to the connection to the cosmic cloud when we hit 0.1 hertz?
The static clears. The biological antenna is perfectly tuned, your RES opens up, and your brain is finally capable of receiving clean data from the quantum field without destroying it with noise.
And how do we experience that data? We don't hear a booming voice from the heavens. We experience it as intuition.
Exactly.
But wait, if this is a literal transfer of survival data from a cosmic database, why does it arrive as a vague gut feeling?
Ah, I see what you're asking.
Why doesn't it arrive as a clear, logical thought? Why can't I just receive an internal email that says, hey, take vitamin C and turn left at the next stoplight?
Because, as we established earlier, the cosmic field doesn't speak English. The universe stores pure experiential data, pure abstract concepts of survival.
Okay.
When your biological antenna receives that wave of information, your brain has to translate it instantly using the physical hardware available. And the fastest processing system in your body isn't your language center, it's your nervous system.
So it translates the cosmic data into a physical sensation.
A flush of heat, a tightening in the stomach, a sudden spike in heart rate, or an inexplicable, overwhelming urge to take a different route home.
So the anxiety in my chest before I walk into a specific room isn't necessarily a malfunction of my brain.
Not at all.
It is a highly efficient translation of a downloaded data packet.
Yes.
Like another soul somewhere in the history of the unified field walked into a structurally similar situation, experienced a threat, survived it, and uploaded that data. My coherent heart downloaded it and translated it into physical tension to warn me.
Intuitions are proved hypotheses of survival, downloaded from the cloud.
That is absolutely profound. But it also means that our ability to receive these downloads is highly fragile.
Extremely.
If fear blocks the signal, then what happens when we are placed in a system that constantly utilizes fear? That takes us into the crucible of human health, where the stakes of this cosmic theory are put to the ultimate test.
This is where the theoretical physics meets the harsh reality of clinical biology. We are examining the medical philosophy of Dr. Kadiyali Srivatsa.
Right.
He has developed a methodology known as Dr. Maya, or the art of self-diagnosis. And the sources draw a direct lineage between his modern approach and the ancient wisdom of Charaka.
Charaka being the ancient Indian physician who codified the principles of Ayurveda thousands of years ago.
Yes.
Charaka didn't view the human body as a machine made of isolated parts. He viewed it as an ecosystem deeply and inextricably connected to the cosmos.
And Dr. Srivatsa views the modern patient as a biological entity whose intrinsic connection to that cosmic ecosystem is being brutally severed by the language of fear. Srivatsa introduces a concept he calls zeta-9 signals.
What exactly is a zeta-9 signal?
It is essentially quantum anticipation. Long before a disease manifests as a macroscopic physical symptom, before a tumor shows up on an MRI, or before white blood cell counts drop on a standard test, the cellular field of the body begins to change.
At a quantum level.
Yes. The biophoton emissions alter. There are microtremors in the energetic signature of the tissue. The body is signaling an imbalance at the quantum level.
The body is whispering that a systemic failure is impending long before the earthquake actually hits the surface.
Precisely. The system is asking for a recalibration. But modern algorithmic medicine is not designed to listen to zeta-9 signals.
No, it waits for the crash.
It waits for the macroscopic symptom to appear, it categorizes that symptom into a rigid diagnostic algorithm, and it applies a standardized protocol. Dr. Srivatsa argues that this purely mechanical approach completely ignores the story of the illness.
The patient's life.
It ignores the patient's emotional landscape, which, as we've established, is the very mechanism collapsing the quantum wave function of their biology.
Now, I want to pause here for a second and frame how we are looking at this material.
Good idea.
Dr. Srivatsa is making a very sharp, very systemic critique of modern medical algorithms. He believes they actively harm patients by inducing what psychologists call learned helplessness.
Right.
For you listening, we are not exploring this to take a definitive stance on medical politics, and we are certainly not advising anyone to ignore their physician. We are dissecting Srivatsa's philosophy purely to understand the mechanics of his theory, how human belief, fear, and free will might literally alter the quantum probabilities inside our cells.
And the clearest way to understand those mechanics is to walk through the specific comparative example provided in the source material.
Yes, this example blew my mind.
It is a brilliant illustration of the faith index versus the nocebo effect. Let's imagine two individuals, person A and person B. They both develop the exact same macroscopic symptom, a severe, persistent headache.
Genetically and biologically, it is the exact same anomaly in the brain tissue.
Yes, exact same. Now, person A goes to a standard clinical facility. The physician examines them briefly, runs down a checklist of common symptoms, and diagnoses it as a simple tension headache.
Okay.
They prescribe a mild pain reliever and advise the patient to rest and manage their stress.
So person A accepts this. They don't feel a threat to their life. The headache is a nuisance, but they go home and sleep. And what about person B?
Person B goes to a different specialist. They undergo a barrage of advanced imaging. The doctor returns with the scans, sits them down, and with the absolute, unquestionable authority of modern medical science, diagnoses them with an aggressive, terminal brain tumor.
Oh, wow.
The doctor delivers a timeline for their inevitable decline.
The injection of absolute certainty.
Yeah.
And here's where the quantum biology we've been discussing violently kicks in. Walk us through the biological cascade of person B in that exact moment.
The moment that medical authority declares the tumor terminal, the patient's psychological framework shatters. They accept the diagnosis as an absolute, unavoidable truth.
They believe it completely.
In that specific fraction of a second, they surrender their free will to the authority of the diagnosis.
The fear just takes over.
And it isn't just a mental state. It is a catastrophic biological event. The amygdala hijacks the brain. Massive amounts of cortisol and adrenaline flood the system.
The physical reaction.
The autonomic nervous system goes into severe sympathetic overdrive. The heart rhythm instantly becomes jagged and chaotic. They lose all electromagnetic coherence.
Their broadcast signal becomes pure, terrified static.
And because they are broadcasting a signal of inevitable death, what does the reticular activating system do?
It follows instructions.
It follows instructions. The RAS locks down. It filters out any subtle intuitive impulses that might guide the patient toward healing. It shuts the door to the cosmic cloud.
Wow.
Biologically, the cellular environment becomes incredibly hostile to repair mechanisms. There is literally no energetic bandwidth left for the immune system to recalibrate.
Fear is the architect of the disease's environment. It alters the electrical potential of the cell membranes, locking them in a state of decay.
It is the ultimate nocebo effect. The patient's profound, terrifying belief collapses the quantum probability wave of their biology into the worst possible physical outcome. The tumor manifests, anchors itself in the chaotic environment, and grows rapidly, fulfilling the prophecy.
But Srivatsa asks us to look at the alternative timeline. What if we remove the algorithmic injection of fear? What if that soul, person B, had been empowered to maintain their free will?
If person B had been given the emotional space to simply observe the symptom, the headache, without the immediate, terrifying label of terminal, their biological trajectory could be entirely different.
Right.
If they could maintain emotional coherence, if they could keep their heart rhythm at 0.1 hertz despite the pain, their RAS remains open, their biological antenna remains functional.
And their brain can query the cosmic database, because this is the beauty of the universal hard drive.
Exactly.
Somewhere in the vast 300,000-year history of the human species, another soul possessed this exact same cellular anomaly. But maybe they lived 3,000 years ago in a forest. There were no MRI machines, no doctors to tell them they were going to die. They just had the symptom.
And because they weren't told it was a death sentence, they didn't panic. They rested. They maintained their emotional coherence. Their body naturally sought equilibrium.
You just let it happen.
Their immune system recognized the anomaly, dismantled it, and they survived.
And when they survived, that biological triumph, that specific cellular blueprint for defeating the tumor, was uploaded to the cosmic cloud as a proved hypothesis.
Exactly. If person B maintains their coherence, their open biological antenna can download that specific ancient survival data.
Right.
The brain receives it as an intuition, a subconscious set of instructions that cascades down into the immune system, reorganizing the body's defenses. The anomaly shrinks. The patient becomes symptom-free.
It sounds miraculous, but following the logic of the quantum field, it is simply data transfer.
It's physics.
If your beliefs dictate what your RAS filters, and your heart's electromagnetic field dictates your connection to the quantum vacuum, then a doctor handing you a terminal diagnosis with absolute certainty is basically handing you the script for your own biological collapse.
Which is precisely why Dr. Srivatsa developed the Dr. Maya color-coded system.
Right, colors.
He recognized that the complex Latin-based terminology of modern medicine is essentially a weaponized language that bypasses the rational brain and triggers the amygdala's fear response.
So how does the color system short-circuit that fear response?
It democratizes the knowledge and simplifies the emotional reaction. Instead of giving a patient a terrifying multisyllabic diagnosis, symptoms are categorized by color.
Just simple colors.
Red indicates a genuine emergency requiring immediate external intervention. Yellow is caution, monitor the symptom. Green is self-care. Your body has this under control. Blue indicates an infectious state where you need to isolate to protect others.
By assigning a color, you keep the prefrontal cortex online. You give the patient an actionable category rather than a death sentence. It hands the free will back to the individual.
It stops the patient from immediately dropping into panic mode over every zeta 9 signal. And by maintaining that baseline of calm, the heart remains coherent.
The antenna stays open.
The faith index, which Western medicine dismisses as just the placebo effect, is allowed to operate at maximum capacity. The body is granted the energetic space to heal itself using universal data.
So if we have this incredible capacity to heal ourselves by downloading the survival experiences of past generations from the cosmic cloud, it begs a massive architectural question.
It really does.
Why is the system built this way? Why does the universe need us to process this data? Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. The cosmic imperative.
To understand the why, we have to return to the philosophical foundation provided by the Vedas, specifically the concept of karma yoga and the underlying principle of unconditional love. We have to ask a fundamental question about the nature of reality. What is the difference between the physical universe and a human being?
Well, structurally, we are made of the exact same stuff. The universe is composed of atoms, gravity, electromagnetic radiation, light. We are made of carbon, oxygen, trace minerals.
Right.
But the difference is we are alive. We are conscious.
Yes, but let's drill down into what that consciousness actually provides. Think about the physical universe in isolation. Chemicals, atoms, photons of light, magnetic fields, none of these things can experience.
No.
A photon traveling from a distant star cannot feel the warmth of the sun. A carbon atom cannot feel grief. A magnetic field cannot taste the sweetness of a strawberry or feel the heartbreak of losing a child. The physical universe is completely blind and numb to feeling.
It can identify patterns, it can process configurations of mass and energy, but it has no capacity for subjective experience.
In philosophy, this is akin to the zombie problem. A universe without conscious observers is just a massive, silent supercomputer crunching data in the dark.
Running code.
It has all the information, it runs all the thermodynamic programs, but it possesses no monitor and no speakers. It does not know what its own output actually feels like.
That is a staggering realization. The universe requires biological life to feel itself. We are the sensory organs of the cosmos.
We are the monitors and the speakers. As human beings, we are expressly designed to experience emotion.
And this loops beautifully back to the MIT Resonance X data.
It does.
The universe is a hard drive storing information, but it cannot generate the experiential data of survival on its own. It needs us to generate the code.
That is the cosmic imperative. This is why the Hindu traditions insist that a soul must not pass from this world without fully engaging with it, without sharing what they see, hear, smell, touch, and taste.
Because it's not just for them.
Your experiences are not private. They are profoundly public on a quantum level.
Wait, let me push back on this because this reframes everything about human suffering. Are you saying that my personal pain, my joy, the taste of my morning coffee, the absolute crushing agony of a sickness or failure, none of that is just for me? I am essentially performing data collection for the cosmos.
You are. Every time you face a challenge, whether it is an aggressive illness, a financial collapse, or a moment of profound existential terror, you are standing at the absolute frontier of human experience.
Wow.
You are in the crucible. If you succumb to the fear, your broadcast signal is chaotic. The data is lost in static. But if you conquer that fear, If you manage to regulate your nervous system, maintain the zero point 0.1 hertz coherence in your heart, and find a way to survive the illness or the crisis.
I upload a proved hypothesis.
Your emotional coherence mints that survival experience into a pristine data packet, and it uploads it back into the cosmic memory bank. You are quite literally writing the survival code for the universe.
I am providing the exact energetic blueprint that another soul, maybe someone living 100 years from now, facing the exact same terrifying medical diagnosis in the dark, will intuitively download to save their own life.
That is the ultimate expression of karma yoga. Action performed without attachment to the personal results, driven by an unconditional love for the whole of existence.
That's beautiful.
You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the universe evolving itself, refining its own ability to survive and thrive.
Let's take a breath and look at the massive journey we've just taken, because we have covered an immense amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started in a sterile, hyper-shielded lab at MIT in 2024, where the discovery of Resonance X proved that the quantum vacuum has a memory, that the universe stores structured information outside of physical space and time.
We then looked back 3 millennia to the Vedic seers, who understood this exact unified field. They called it Brahman, and they mapped out how our perception of individual separation is merely a biological illusion known as Maya.
Then we brought that cosmic architecture down into the wet biology of the human body. The HeartMath Institute and the CIA's Gateway research showed us that our hearts are the most powerful electromagnetic broadcasters we possess. Our emotions are the physical interface, the login password to the cloud, and our reticular activating system acts as the bouncer, filtering out the universe based on the emotional instructions we give it.
We applied this to the crucible of human health through Dr. Srivatsa's framework. We saw the catastrophic biological consequences of surrendering our free will to fear, how a terrifying medical diagnosis can induce chaotic signals, lock down the RAS, and provide the exact energetic environment for disease to flourish.
Which is terrifying, but also empowering.
Because we also saw the alternative. By maintaining coherence and bypassing the language of fear, we can open our biological antennas, access the universal database, and activate the body's latent quantum capacity to heal.
And finally, we arrived at our cosmic responsibility. The realization that our daily struggles, our emotional triumphs over fear, are not isolated, meaningless events.
No, they are vital.
They are the essential data the universe requires to update its survival code for every single soul that comes after us.
It elevates the human experience from a random biological accident to a vital cosmic necessity.
It really does. It changes everything. Which leaves us with a final concept from the sources to mull over today. And I want you, listening, to really internalize this as you step away from this deep dive.
It's a powerful thought.
The sources present a model where we are essentially players immersed in a vast, incredibly realistic virtual reality game.
A profoundly immersive, high-stakes simulation.
Yes. But the tragedy is that upon entering this game, we voluntarily accepted a kind of amnesia. We forgot our immense quantum power. We started believing with all our hearts that we were merely the avatars on the screen, reacting helplessly to the code being thrown at us, rather than realizing we are the programmers writing the code.
We forgot that we hold the controller.
Exactly. So as you go through your day-to-day, look at the very real challenges standing in front of you, the health anxiety, the stress at work, the fear of the unknown, and ask yourself a fundamental question.
Are you just the character on the screen?
Are you helplessly playing out a pre-written script of fear and decay? Or are you the player, stepping into coherence, taking a deep breath, and getting ready to write something entirely new, entirely triumphant into the eternal memory of the universe?
A phenomenal question to leave them with.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, keep questioning the illusion of separation, and never stop exploring.